This could change everything. Bleacher Report just wrote an article about RJ Barrett where they labeled him the weakest starter for the New York Knicks. And they mentioned that out of all the players looking and fighting for a starting position on next season's roster, RJ Barrett may need to fight just as hard to keep his starting spot for the New York Knicks. We're going to look into this article and break down everything it stated about RJ Barrett and so much more today. Let's get started. Apparently, RJ Barrett is seen as the weakest link for starters, according to Bleacher Report's Andy Bailey. According to Andy Bailey, he states that it's almost certain that Jalen Brunson will run the point, while Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson will hold their starting spots at power forward and center respectively. As for the wings, there's still two spots possibly up for grabs. Quentin Grimes, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and RJ Barrett all have cases to be named to the starting five. But out of that group, Barrett could be the weak link, per Bleacher Report's Andy Bailey. But Bailey goes on to state why he believes RJ Barrett is the weak link for the New York Knicks as a starter. Bailey states he scored a whopping 299.1 fewer points than a perfectly average shooter would have on his attempts over that stretch. He doesn't get to the free throw line near enough to make up for that, and his defense isn't really moving the needle either. Since the start of 2021-2022, the New York Knicks are minus 1.7 points per 100 possessions with Barrett on the floor and plus 7.3 without him. These are very interesting and key points that Andy Bailey is making here to make his case that RJ Barrett should not be a starter, but maybe should come off the bench for Tom Thibodeau and have either Josh Hart or Quentin Grimes take his spot in the starting unit. That's a very bold statement, and I promise you it's going to get a lot of fiery comments, not only in this video comment section, but for everywhere this article is being discussed. Listen, I think it's good to talk about which starters and which players make sense in terms of playing together. That I can understand. And if you want to make a case for RJ Barrett coming off the bench, all you have to really do is look at last season. Because not for nothing, Tom Thibodeau seemed most comfortable putting RJ Barrett in with the reserve unit, so that way RJ Barrett could be the number one guy on that reserve unit and lead that group. And sometimes Tom Thibodeau was comfortable with that. However, I don't think that the New York Knicks can afford to bench RJ Barrett and put in a Grimes or a Josh Hart or a DiVincenzo in his place. The first reason I say that is due to RJ Barrett's size, the way he plays, and how strong he is. There's nobody on the New York Knicks that is just as strong at his size as RJ Barrett is. He's one of the more taller players that we have, and in a system right now where we don't really have that much height besides Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, and then we have a bunch of other guards, we really need more size in the starting unit. So any additional height that we can get, I want to add that. The first reason I say that is due to RJ Barrett's size, the way he plays, and how strong he is. There's nobody on the New York Knicks that is just as strong at his size as RJ Barrett is. He's one of the more taller players that we have, and in a system right now where we don't really have that much height besides Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, and then we have a bunch of other guards, we really need more size in the starting unit. So any additional height that we can get, I want to add that. Another reason to keep RJ Barrett is the chemistry, because I believe RJ Barrett definitely has gained some chemistry with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and all of the other starters. Even though he does play with the reserve unit at times and does have chemistry with them too, he's built a lot of chemistry in the starting unit with those guys already. And I think switching him out will only harm RJ's game more than it will help him. And I think RJ Barrett is a player for the New York Knicks that has seen the most change in his role from season to season. He was supposed to be the guy. Then he was the guy behind Julius Randle for a couple of seasons. And then last season, he was the guy behind Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. So whether RJ Barrett's going into next season as the second or the third option for the New York Knicks, he's still going to be an important piece for the Knicks. And him understanding his role and what he needs to do is going to be key for this New York Knicks team. Because if he can understand his role and understand it to a high level, going into the season, he's already going to have an advantage over a lot of other teams and a lot of other players. Because understanding your role, what you need to do, and how you fit is important. But one thing that Andy Bailey wrote here that I wanted to mention, and it was very crucial, was RJ Barrett's defense. He stated that RJ Barrett's defense doesn't really move the needle. And you know what? In the first few years, I would argue against that point. I would say RJ Barrett's defense did move the needle. He was one of the better defenders for the New York Knicks. But for some reason, really over the last 2 seasons, that same defensive tenacity he used to have isn't there. Which is surprising to me because your head coach is Tom Thibodeau. So if anybody should keep you in that defensive mindset and locked into that, it should be Tom Thibodeau. Now it doesn't seem like he's as willing to defend, especially if his shots are not falling. He's less likely to defend. And that's not what we need. Coming into the season, he needs to be locked in on both offense and defense. He needs to be that two-way wing for us because at this point, we don't have anybody else. And if we're not going to trade for anybody else, then we need every single Knick player to step up, increase their game, and get better. And if that can happen, then yeah, maybe the New York Knicks can find themselves in a very good position next season heading into the playoffs. But as of right now, it's all up to the players and what they can do to develop their game and get better. We see RJ Barrett working out with Team Canada. We see RJ Barrett working out with his trainer, Drew Hanlon. So we see RJ Barrett putting in that work this offseason as well, too. And we see him working on the things that we need him to work on. Not only shooting, but mid-range shooting. Shooting inside the paint. Shooting when you're taking contact. Working on a mid-range game where you're dribbling, you're stopping, and you're popping for a shot. That's what he's working on as well, too. So RJ Barrett is doing all the things necessary this offseason to solidify his spot as a starter for the New York Knicks. And I wouldn't expect anything less because RJ Barrett always does this. When he feels like he doesn't have the greatest season or didn't have the greatest game, he's hard on himself, but he also works on the things he knows he needs to get better on efficiently and aggressively each and every offseason. And that type of work ethic, regardless of what you want to say about it, it's important to have in the NBA and it's important to have as a New York Knicks player. Because if you don't have that, your game is only going to be as good as it is. But if you have a willingness and a drive to make your game better each and every day, like we've seen from RJ Barrett, then you can only anticipate and expect good things. He had one of his worst regular seasons this past season. I think everybody would agree to that. However, in the postseason, he was one of our best players behind Jalen Brunson. Say what you want to say about injuries and concerns, whatever the case may be. You could step up or you could step down. And he did not step down. He stepped up when he needed to step up right behind Jalen Brunson and did exactly what he needed to do. I think that's still impressive, and I still think it's important to note that he showed up when the lights were brightest. If he can contribute that same energy and effort each and every game for the regular season and turn it to even a higher degree going into the postseason, I think RJ Barrett's game would be a magnificent leap this season if he can do that. And as for Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report, I know you may not want RJ Barrett to start for the New York Knicks, but you know what? You're going to have to accept it. RJ Barrett is most likely going to be listed as a starter for the New York Knicks heading into next season. I can't see any player right now on the New York Knicks fighting him off or taking him for that position for next season because it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to move him given all the positives he gives you for the New York Knicks when he is a starter. And I do acknowledge he needs to get better, especially in some key areas. But if he does get better in those areas and he grows in the other areas we expect him to, then I think RJ Barrett being kept as a starter makes all the sense in the world. The real position to watch is Quentin Grimes' spot because I think that spot is more volatile. And I think the addition of Donte DiVincenzo basically challenges Grimes' spot more than it challenges RJ Barrett's spot, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts between Donte DiVincenzo, Quentin Grimes, and Josh Hart at that position. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch that too. But at this point with RJ Barrett, fans, if you were worried, I wouldn't worry about it at all. if the Knicks absolutely did bench RJ Barrett and put somebody else in his spot, it would absolutely change everything for the New York Knicks, change what they're doing, and change their approach going forward. Absolutely, if they did that. But you don't have to worry about it because it's not happening. I absolutely believe that RJ Barrett next season will suit up for the New York Knicks as a starter without question. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a comment below, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans. Peace.